Today we're talking about purpose and calling and those kind of things. I wanted to sit down and talk with my wife about our family just so you guys would get a little bit of chance to know kind of how we try to live that out in our own lives. Anna and I have been married for 15, almost 16 years. We have 3 kids, Lucy, Rivers, and Grace. They are 10, 9, and 5. And we're currently in the process of adopting another child, and we just adopted a dog, so we have a full house full of
Chaos.
people. Chaos, yes. Do you want to tell them how sort of like adoption started the whole cycle for our family?
Sure. This story could be funny and lengthy, but it won't. We weren't even dating yet. We were just friends because we were friends for a while before we dated. And there's a backstory to that. But we were, sorry. Why are you?
I was a jerk. That's the backstory.
If you want to say it like that. But when we were just friends, we somehow had a conversation about kids, and we both made mention that we wanted to adopt at some point. And then when we did, we started dating. And after being married for probably 3 years, we decided we wanted to, we started talking about kids, and we thought we would adopt at some point, but it became very clear when we started talking about kids that we knew we wanted to adopt first. So we, after probably a year of trying to figure out how we wanted to go about that, we entered into the process of adopting from Ethiopia. And that took about 2 years, I guess. And we, in 2011, we brought home a 13-and-a-half-month-old named Lucy.
Yep. From Ethiopia.
From Ethiopia.
In that process, we had to, at first they said it would take 12 to 14 months, something like that. It ended up taking 2 years. And we were only supposed to make one trip, but we had to take 2 trips. The 2 trips were spread out 6 months apart from each other. And in that middle part, between the 2 trips to Ethiopia, Anna came in. We'd both gotten emails from our adoption agency that said that we were about to be approved to go back to Ethiopia, and she came in with like balloons and was like, "Hey," I was like, "Oh, you got the email? We're going back to Ethiopia at some point." And she's like, "Nope," and told me that she was pregnant with our son. So we brought a 13-and-a-half-month-old home in August of 2011, and December in 2011, our second child was born. Rivers was born. So we had 2 kids in 4 months. Mm-hmm. Tell people all the time that was almost killed us, but here we are asking for more.
Yeah, apparently. So when we brought Lucy home and had Rivers, I was working part-time at the time. Done a lot of different jobs professionally. I've taught school, and I have worked at a girls' group home. I've worked for a curriculum company, and now I work for Noonday Collection. So we are a socially conscious fashion brand. So I've been doing that for the past 7 years. So it's changed with every stage probably of our kids as they've grown in different ways. It's always been important for me to have something that I feel passionate about, and I'm very fortunate that all the jobs I've worked at have been things I've been very passionate about. But it's also come with like a time of us having to sit down and go, okay, what during this season, what do we need? And so sometimes that's been me leaning in more to professional things and goals, and sometimes that's leaning more into being at home with our kids. But it's important for me to be able to do both. There was a season where I wasn't able to really do that because, we had 2 kids in 4 months, and I did still work, but because we needed the financial aspect of it. But it was very much I was needed here and with the kids. But there was a kind of a point where we came to where it was like, okay, it's really important that I live out something that I'm passionate about, along with being a mother, which I am very passionate about. And so I just kind of learned over the past, I mean, I guess we've been parenting for
10 years almost.
Yeah, almost 10 years. Just that it ebbs and flows, and it's not perfect. And there's times where I realize that I need to scale down maybe a little bit professionally, or maybe I need to be at home a little bit more. But they're both important to me, and so we figure out a way to make it work. Knowing that that's not going to be perfect. I'm not going to balance it perfectly. It's not going to be exact. And every day I just have to kind of figure out the best that I can, how to live out into both purposes, I guess, for my life.
Yeah. I think for everybody and for us, it's, you have your work that you have to balance with your family and your relational obligations and the things that give you life relationally. And you also have to balance that with the need to pay bills and live and eat. And that's difficult. And throughout that process, there's things you plan on happening, like the adoption for us was something that we planned on happening. But then there's things that you don't plan on happening, like maybe losing a job, or like for us is having a surprise biological baby. Those are the kind of things that you just have to learn to balance. And when you're talking about not being perfect, that's kind of the way that we approach it, is like there are the things that we know that we want to accomplish, that God has called us to. And when the things that come up that we don't really expect, how do we still accomplish those things and take care of those things in a way that honors God and what He wants for us as a married couple, as a family, as people who are, like I'm a pastor and you work for Noonday, those are things that you're also very passionate about. How do you juggle all those things? Well, you always be anchored with how God has wired us all to live as Jesus followers.
Yeah, and I've had to kind of live into that some, because I can tend to feel really guilty if I am home too much and not doing my job that I love, or if I am doing more with the job and not being home with the kids as much. And I think all moms can feel that tension no matter what you do. And so I had to really wrestle through guilt and trying to realize that God has this, He does have this purpose for me, and it's okay to live into two different things. It's okay for it to be and. For a long time, I felt like I had to be this or this. And that can go with anything, not just motherhood and jobs, but I had to be one or the other. And that's just not, I've learned that's not the case, that it can be both. And then I can be both, and that God has both for me, purpose and kids, purpose and a job with purpose.
Yeah.
And it's different for different seasons of life.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been most incredible about the season that we're in right now is just the way we're able to kind of appreciate and enjoy the phase that our kids are at, and where our family's at, but also know, as we're adopting now, that God has like more things later on. And there have been some surprises with that process too. We don't know when or actually how we get questions all the time. Well, when is it going to be? Well, we don't really know. But we're still trusting God because He has wired us and He has granted us gifts and talents, and we're just going to use those the best to our ability, I guess. Mm-hmm. This is something that Anna has been very big on since before we had kids or married or anything like that. Is I say this all the time. Everything is a celebration for her. It's like, and it is for us as a family. I mentioned it during the Christmas Eve service. We have a birthday cake plate. Everybody eats off the birthday cake plate, and you eat off it all day. You eat pancakes on it, and then you eat lunch and dinner on it if it's home. Everybody gets a party, but on Christmas, the birthday cake plate comes out, and we have a birthday party for Jesus. On Thanksgiving Day, we tell everybody what we're thankful for. On Valentine's Day, we have little mailboxes that we write notes to each other, although we haven't been very diligent about that this time around.
Like, they're out. We got to do that. It's not about being perfect. It's about intention.
Yeah, so that's a big part of our. That's a big part. It's just part of our family rhythm is what we do.
Well, and I think it's important. Rhythms are important for me. I'm not great at rhythms. Like I'm not, for my personal self, rhythms are not easy. I'm not, I feel like you're very diligent and very disciplined, and I'm not. But when it comes to rhythms for our family, I also just know that if I'm not intentional about what we're doing, then it's just going to get lost. It's not going to happen. And there are seasons where we have to sit down and look at each other and say, okay, we're not being very intentional about whatever. And we need to figure out a way to do that, whether it's one-on-one time with our kids or whether it's time as a family, whether that's date nights for us, making sure, I mean, and right now with COVID, I mean, that's just like sitting in the car sometimes. Like I think last week we got coffee and we drove around Tupelo for an hour because we didn't really have anywhere to go, but like just because we know that it's important, it's an important rhythm for our family. And then in terms of like just spending time with our kids and being intentional with them, it's neat. I didn't know what that would be like as they got older, but now they've come to expect some of the rhythms, and it's very. I think it's constant for them, in that they know that we're going to do this day. Like we're going to do, like on Thursdays we do a tea party, and it's not. Well, sometimes they get out the fancy china, and I've had to let that go. Like we don't ever use it anyway, but like, because we're not fancy people. But they'll get that out, and I mean, it's definitely not me making homemade treats. It's like a box of Little Debbie's that I ran to Dollar General to get because I remembered that I didn't have anything. So again, it's not about perfection. It's about the idea. But now my kids know, like they came home from school and they were like, okay, what are we having for our tea party? It's ingrained in them. And as we've had kids get a little bit older, they've begun to ask about those and expect those. And I think there's something in them that's just, it's comforting to know that we have these rhythms in our family and that they're not perfect, and that it is chaotic around here all the time. But just that we try to be intentional with our time and intentional with our rhythms.
Yeah. And I would also say the thing is that you have to figure out individually what gives you life and make time for that, and have conversations about how you make time for that, and also be willing to sacrifice sometimes the things that give you life in order for your spouse or your kids to have things that give them life as well. Like we are definitely not perfect at that, but I think that's something that we have gotten better at as we've gotten older. Is I love to go camping. I love to spend the night in the woods, and I really love to do it by myself. Well, I can't do that as much, and so I still do it, but I bring at least the two older kids with me. Those are and it becomes part of their rhythm, part of their routine, part of something they like to do. I had to start making time for some of the things that I like to do by myself, just to get up really early in the morning, just so I could do it before everybody gets up. And so I think those are the kind of things that you have to kind of figure out.
Yeah, and it's give and take, because there's things I'm passionate about and things that I feel are part of my calling, and things that I enjoy doing, that we make an allowance where it's like, you're like, I'm going to handle this because I know this is important to you, and you go do this. And it's not perfect, because there's days when we're like, he says he's going running, and I'm like, giving them side eye, where I'm like, where are you going running right now? But then at the same time, I also know that that's something that is good for you. It's good for you mentally, and you really enjoy it. And so when I'm in a healthy state, I want to help further that for you. And so that means me hanging out with the kids while you go on a long run. But you do the same for me, in different instances. Yeah.
Well, there's times when you just need to leave the house, and there's times when you need to stay in the house, and I'll take the kids somewhere, even if it's just for 30 minutes.
Or sometimes you get home from work and I'm like, taking a bath.
Yep.
No one come in.
Yep.
Which means watch all these kids and don't interrupt me.
Yep. Yes, I think that helps, is just finding out what works. the biggest thing, honestly, is just communicating about how you are and how you feel. Because if you could say that, and you create that culture not just between each other, the kids see it, and they start to mirror that. And I think communication and being open and honest is easier for some people than it is for others. And I can even see that there are people in our family that it's easier for them to talk, and there's people in our family that's harder for them to talk. And we just have to work together to try and make sure that people are saying how they feel, including me, but everybody, is that you have to be really open and honest about how you're feeling at the time, and then have grace when people are really open and honest with you about how you feel, which is not always easy, but you just keep working on it, and I think that's helpful.
Well, but it also, I know one of the big things for me is for our kids to be able to communicate well. I feel like I've had to grow into and learn how to communicate what I'm feeling and what even when I'm passionate about, or what I need or what I want. That hasn't always come easy for me to say that, and I want our kids to really see that being modeled with us so that they can then do that. So one of the things we do is, like at the tea party that we have every Thursday, we go around and we say our highs and lows. For our youngest, sometimes it's like, what's my high? And she's like, this cupcake I'm eating, or, but then
usually it is the cupcake.
Usually it is the sugar that she's ingesting. But for our older ones, I've had one of them say, oh, it was my low for this week was my friend kept falling, and that made me sad because I didn't, she just kept tripping, and we're getting to the point where it's been a rhythm for so long for them just to say, and a lot of the time it is just whatever they're excited about in the moment, or whatever they're sad about or mad at me in the moment. But then every so often there's this deep thing that comes out. But I think that comes from the rhythm of saying, what is our high? What is our low? And it's the same way with taking compliments. I know on their birthdays, we go around and everyone says something they love about the person whose birthday it is. And I think that it goes both ways. We want, and again, it's an exercise for us too, because I'm not great at this, but we go around, and so it's an exercise in looking someone in the eye and saying what you think about them, something that you love about them. But then as the person who's taking it, it's also being able to sit there and receive what's being said to you, and know that those things are true and believe it about yourself. So I just think it's important for us to model those things, and it's a learning work. We're a work in progress, figuring that out too.
Yeah. We have spiritual rhythms too that we, right now, our youngest, we're reading through a kid's Bible that we have with her, and
but we came to that because you came to me a few months ago. I just put it all out there. If anybody wants to know, I always tell you the truth. So he came to me a couple of months ago, and he was like, we have not been like our other kids. We really read to them. We really spent time with them at bedtime, and she's not a great sleeper, so we are always just get in the bed. And so it was okay, this is an area that we're lacking in, and that is in the spiritual rhythms with our youngest. And so we got the Jesus Storybook Bible, which is the ones we've used with our other kids, and now we're in a rhythm of we rotate putting her to bed, and one of us reads the story every night. So sometimes it's just looking at where you are, recognizing, oh, we're not where we want to be.